Am I the asshole for telling my sister I hate her for ruining my trip in the worst way possible? 17 female. Recently had a falling out with my sister, 23, in September. We haven't talked in about 4 months due to issues involving our mother, and sides were chosen on her half that I had no intention of being okay with, so I stepped away and went no contact with both of them. I went on a trip to see my long-distance boyfriend for the first time since dating for 7 months. I was ecstatic and so happy to finally be with him for his birthday and have some time to be together. On the 3rd day of my trip I get a call from my sister that I declined. I didn't want any drama that always came along with answering her calls and left it alone. I then get a call from her boyfriend who's freaking out and sobbing. He tells me that my sister had gotten into a head-on crash with a truck and died. Of course I was absolutely hysterical. I couldn't walk, I was in so much anguish. I frantically packed my bags and called my dad to tell him what just happened and if he could get me a ticket. He did. My boyfriend came with me on the courtesy of my dad not wanting me to be alone. I fly out at 3 in the morning and get picked up by my dad. I'm still losing my mind over my sister. It takes an hour from the airport to her house, and so I call her BF's number telling him I'll be there and I need to know what happened when I get there. I get there and run to the door with my dad in tow. My boyfriend stays in the car out of respect and I frantically wait to be let in. My sister answers the door with the biggest shit-eating grin on her face. She says, "So you do care about me?" Me and my dad are floored. My dad immediately gets angry, in the saddest way possible, and bitter towards her and starts to huff and puff at her about how that her pulling this isn't a joke. She just shrugs at it and says towards me, "I only did it so I know you'd even care since you like to choose favorites with our parents." I'm still speechless at that point. I gathered enough of myself to tell her that the reason I stopped taking to mom was because of years of mental and emotional abuse and manipulation, that I couldn't take being used as a middle man or the family failure scapegoat. I told her I just had the worst 7 hours of my life and that this just showed that she didn't care enough about me to think how this would affect me mentally. Never in my life have I ever felt such grief, sadness, and anguish. I was a mess. I told her I hate her. I left her house and my dad got us to cheap hotel to sleep at. I'm still getting text from her and my mom for what I said was rude and how I reacted was unnecessary for a little test. I feel like I may have overreacted, but I just need some outside perspective. Am I the asshole? NTA. This is not a test, this is serious. WTH, who does this? Go no contact. Also, I am not for posting drama on Facebook but let your friends and family know what happened. Your mom and sister have serious mental health issues. Not the asshole. You both have the same father? Tell your dad to be a proper parent and discipline his child properly, and tell him to shut up your mother cause this is stupid. They should pay you back for your plane ticket too. Am I the asshole for refusing to pressure my grandfather to give my stepsister the family diamond? Context: I am 25F. My parents have been divorced for 15 years. My dad has been married to his wife Laura for 10 years. Laura has 2 daughters, Katie, 26F, and Sam, 22F. My dad is very close to Katie and Sam and considers them to be daughters to him. The grandfather I am referring to is my dad's father. My grandfather has a diamond that belonged to my great-grandmother, and it's something of a family miracle, since my grandfather managed to find it after World War II. Unfortunately, he lost his mother and sister in the war, so he saved the diamond to be for the next woman in the family, to be set into an engagement ring. Now, my grandfather has a thing about blood and family, namely if you're not blood, you can be family, but you're not in the family. I am pretty sure this somewhat related to his trauma, but it might be a generational thing. Because of this distinction, his sons were not allowed to use the diamond for their wives' rings because then the diamond would belong to the wife and the wife is not blood. I am his only biological granddaughter, so it was always presumed that the diamond would go to me. I got engaged last year, and I didn't end up using the diamond for the ring. The diamond was not the color or cut of the style I wanted, and my grandfather knew that. He offered to have the diamond recut, but I begged him not to because it is very valuable and I know how much it means to him, and he agreed that when I get married he will set it into a necklace to be worn on my wedding day instead. Now, Katie is going to get engaged soon. My dad is likely to be asked to walk her down the aisle. Laura asked that my grandfather give her the diamond for her ring, since she is basically my father's daughter. My grandfather said, and I quote, "Not even over my dead body," and that the diamond will stay in the family. That said, Laura, my dad, and Katie are now extremely upset. My dad suggested maybe I could ask my grandfather to let them use the diamond, since I hadn't used it for a ring anyway, and that he considers Katie part of his family and will be forever, so it should be okay for her to have it, especially since she is older, so the first woman as it were. My grandfather would probably relent if I asked him, but I said no because I would feel too guilty. That diamond is all my grandfather has left of a family he lost in the most horrific circumstances when he was 9 years old. They don't even have graves, that stone is literally all he has to remember them. What right do any us have to dictate what he does with it? Katie, Laura, and my dad have all been texting and calling about how hurt they are that I am letting my grandfather exclude Katie from the family, and that I already have a ring. Why can't I just help my grandfather soften and let Laura and her kids be part of the family? I'm holding firm on it for now, but should I be? That diamond is all my grandfather has left of a family he lost in the most horrific circumstances when he was 9 years old. They don't even have graves, that stone is literally all he has to remember them. What right do any us have to dictate what he does with it? Not the asshole. I love you for this. Not the asshole. As much as they may be upset, it's not theirs. Your grandfather wants it to go to someone genetically related to him, not to someone brought into the family by marriage. His reasoning is exactly the same reason he didn't give it the women marrying into the family. Grandpa has a right to say no. Your dad and stepsisters will just have to get over it. Edit. The hard truth is that they are not his grandchildren. They are step-grandkids. And family heirlooms don't typically pass down to stepchildren. Especially with an older generation. Am I the asshole for inserting myself into a married couple's financial life? I'm friends with a married couple, Grace and Michael. Grace and I went out to drink a few days ago, just the two of us. We talked a bit about inflation and finances, and she confessed to me that she barely has any money and it makes her feel really vulnerable. Turns out, they mostly live off of her income, and Michael, who makes over 2.5 times as much as Grace, puts almost all of his income into savings. He also asks Grace to transfer any of her bonuses or extra money into that savings account. The problem is that Grace has no access to that account. She told me she asked for it in the past, but Michael just said she already has access to their shared checking account, that is strictly for their monthly expenses, so it's fine. Grace told me that she feels like she should have access to that account too, or at least have a little extra in her own personal account, so if anything happens to Michael, she doesn't have to wait months to access the money. She told this to Michael too, but he dismissed her and said nothing will happen to him. I told Grace that this is really not okay and she should demand access to that account. It's her money too, and it's not right that only Michael has access to it. I was very strong about this and made her promise that she will make Michael give access to her. She seemed very relieved that I agree with her and find her concerns more than reasonable. Now on to the problem. Currently Michael is throwing a fit at me for inserting myself into their financial life, saying it's none of my business. He says that over 85% of the money was put into the savings account by him, and whatever Grace put there was just to compensate for the things Michael paid for alone in the past. Yes, he is right that it's none of my business, but my close friend came to me saying she feels vulnerable, because at 30 years old, she only has about €500 in her name, despite having a well-paying job. Of course I will tell her this isn't right and encourage her to stand up for herself. But since I'm friends with Michael too, I don't know. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole. You are warning a friend that it sounds like she's a victim of financial abuse. He's demanding all her pay be shared while sharing none of his. He's trying to make sure she has no funds to which she can use to separate their lives, and he can claim all the money as his. She needed a huge wake-up call, and he's just mad you've shown her his true colors. Not the asshole, and your friend is being financially abused by Michael, who is a total awe. Grace needs her own savings account to put her extra money into. Not the asshole. Grace is in a financially abusive relationship. This is financial abuse. He is controlling his wife, and an all-round awe. Please warn your friend. He is pissed about being called out. Besides, she came to you asking for your opinion, and that makes you clearly not the asshole. Am I the asshole for not paying for my stepmom's funeral? English is not my first language. When I, 27M, was 6, I lost my mom. She died giving birth to my siblings, 21F, 21M. When I was 9, my dad met my stepmother. All tough, I always loved my stepmom. I never called her mom. The maximum I would do is refer to her and my dad as my parents. When I was 18, my stepmom asked me and my siblings if she could adopt us. My siblings said yes, but I refused. I explained that I loved her but I wanted to keep my mom as my legal mom. From that moment she started to treat me differently. I moved out soon after but I would always visit. She was cordial to me like you are with strangers. She introduced my siblings as her kids and my as her husband's son. Me and my dad tried to talk to her but she just brushed us off saying that it was all in our head. 3 years ago, me and my sister became parents. With my son my stepmom would be impatient and rude but with my niece she would be the calmest person in the world. I had enough and asked what did I do for her to go 180 degrees on me. She said I was reaping what I sowed, that I rejected her as a mom so that she rejected me as a son. After that I had given up in our relationship, we were cordial and that was it. My dad tried many times to reconcile us to no avail. 1.5 ago she got diagnosed with a terminal illness. Out of family I'm the one most well off so my father called me and asked me to pay for her treatments. I visited and had a talk with her. She apologized for treating me badly and said she loved me like a son and that she had a bad reaction to my refusal of the adoption and regret it. She died a week ago. I only found out because my father called after and explained she didn't wanted me there because she only wanted family. My siblings have approached me and asked me to pay for her funeral expenses and I have refused. They called me in a hole saying that I couldn't be mad for being excluded because I did it to myself when I refused to be adopted. My wife is on my side and even tough my dad says he understands me. He said I should do it for my siblings because my stepmom was their mom. Not the asshole at all. Man. It's astounding how many people think it's appropriate to spend other people's money because they have it. I get that on a societal level for various reasons but where individuals are concerned, I would say that you have no obligation even if you guys got along. Your stepmom sounds like she was an embittered person who craved holding onto a good grudge. Not the asshole. She cut you out in many ways. Family should pay her bills. You're the only one who isn't her legal child and yet you're expected to pay? What the fuck, that makes no sense. Not the asshole. Your siblings and father are fully toxic. Why isn't your dad paying for the funeral?